Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm just waiting to go live on Instagram. There we go. So I got this letter from a friend, and she forwarded it to me from the school. And so I thought, what an interesting thing to talk about because the letter is fairly absurd, actually. So I thought we would start there. And then if you want to leave any comments, I think my comments are on. Yeah, it looks like they are. Although some of them might be disabled. All right, so we'll start. I'm just going to read the letter, and because I found it really fascinating. Oh, my computer's playing games with me. There we go. Okay. Dear families and staff, this is from the school. Reaching out to you to share a serious concern. I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit. A serious concern that affects not just our local schools, but every student, teacher, and family in our community. So already it's dire. Like this is very, very important and dangerous or whatever. Due to recent state budget reductions and a federal funding freeze, our school district is facing over $67 million in financial losses this school year. Now, what's interesting about that is it's a loss to them that it's money that they thought they were getting that they're not getting, but it's not really a loss. They're not sort of operating on loss of revenue. They're actually just operating on not getting the amount of funding that they thought they were. These are not small cuts or temporary delays. We are talking about funding that directly supports classroom instruction, teacher development, and vital programs for some of our most vulnerable students. Now, the question is whether all of the money that they get goes to those things, because I guarantee you it doesn't. But are any of the administrators going to take pay cuts? No, apparently not. Apparently, they're just going to cut the funding to the schools, to the classrooms and the particular students and programs for the most vulnerable students. And then they say state funding for public schools was reduced by more than 47 million after state leaders reported thousands of students inappropriately counted in both voucher and public school programs. Did you hear that? They cut the funding because they accidentally counted more students. So you're not getting paid for students that you don't have. Were you previously getting paid for students that you don't have? Is that and now you're upset because they found out that you don't actually have those students and so you're not getting the money for them? What does this mean? On top of that, more of your public education tax dollars are now being shifted to private school vouchers and charter schools. So that's the school choice movement, right? And the schools are against it because it's competition, but it is taking funding away from them, which is the argument that the pro school choice people make, is that, well, it's going to take funding away from the the public schools. Of course, the alternate argument is, but it's going to publicize is the wrong word. It's going to make public all the private schools when you take public funds and you put them into the private institutions. So because they inappropriately, it's incorrectly. It wasn't like unappropriate. That's the weirdest thing. Inappropriately counted. These people are supposed to be educators. They don't know how to use English. So this means less money for this county's public schools, our students, teachers, and classrooms. So the only people that will suffer are the students, the teachers, and the classrooms, not the administrators. I'm just pointing that out. Not the administrators. They never mention anything about the administrators. And by the way, feel free to comment, and thank you for the lovely comments that I've received already. Federal funding has been frozen, funding that Congress already approved for our schools, nearly $21 million in federal dollars intended for our schools are currently being withheld. These funds support migrant students, English language learners, teacher training, academic enrichment, and adult education programs. Now, in Chicago, we recently learned that they misspent so much money on illegal immigrants instead of on students that they had to cut over 1,400 jobs. And close to 800 of them were for special ed teachers in Chicago schools. So these people are talking about cutting over 125 staff positions. They're not cutting them. They're saying the shortfall threatens them. They're calling it a shortfall. Most of the money they never deserved, they should have counted on it because they should have a reasonable count of how many students they have. So why they are like sideswiped by this idea that they're getting less money because they don't have as many students as the state thought that they had. I can't make this up. This is just bad fiscal policy, bad management, bad. But remember, we started this with this sort of huge statement that serious concern that affects not just the schools, but every student, teacher, and family, every family in the community. You know what? I'm not affected. I'm a family. I have students, but I'm not affected. So maybe this isn't as big a deal as you're making it. I'm just saying, you know, spare us the histrionics when you're not getting money for students that don't exist. And that's upsetting to you, these people. Despite the challenges, they want everybody to know we are not recommending staff cuts. So as fiscally irresponsible as they are, they're actually not going to make any cuts. Duly noted. This is why you don't teach finances in schools, because you have no idea about how finances should be run. They're using every available funding source because up until now they weren't, apparently, including savings and grant programs to protect student services as much as possible. Because up until now, they weren't doing that, I guess. I mean, I'm just reading their letter. They're actively working with state and federal officials to advocate for the release of the federal funds. Well, okay, that makes sense because if you were promised money from the federal government and you're not getting it, the question is why. I don't have that information because they didn't decide to divulge that. And then they say we will be actively advocating for some additional protections to promote funding stability. Well, maybe not lying on the paperwork and saying that you have more students than you do. Maybe that's, I'm not saying that they lied. I'm just saying errors of omission are lies. And if they thought that they were going to get money for 100 students, but they only have 50 students, but they thought they were getting money for 100 students, maybe they should have gone back to them and said, you know what, we only have 50 students. You shouldn't be giving us money for 100 students. But instead, what they're saying is, well, they counted and they only counted 50, and so now we're not getting the money that we thought we were getting. So they're promoting, advocating for additional protections for funding stability by encouraging the legislature to either establish enrollment caps. So now they're going to cut off student enrollment. How does that make sense? Or ensuring adequate budgeting for vouchers. Sounds like that's a you problem, adequate budgeting. So they're upset about the vouchers, which I understand. They're upset about the vouchers. They're clutching their pearls about the vouchers because they do see money going away from them. But ladies and gentlemen, this is all just an argument for job security. Please take care of me. Please, be nice to me or whatever. Okay. Make no mistake, these financial challenges put strain on every part of our system, except nobody's taking a pay cut, apparently. And what are they thinking? They're just going to run the thing into the ground and bankrupt the school? Is that their plan? Because they're not literally, if it's this dire, which they start out by saying, serious concern, $67 million in financial losses, which means just a shortfall in their funding of $67 million. Now, I don't know for this county, I don't know what their total funding budget is supposed to be, but they say it's very serious, but they're not going to make any cuts. They're missing a whole bunch of money, but they're not going to change the way they do business. So you tell me, like, where's the intelligence in this? Either it's a crisis, in which case you got to tighten your belts, lay some people off, make some changes, maybe, I don't know, maybe bigger class sizes, maybe something, or it's just not that big of a deal and you're just going to go about as business as usual. I don't know. It makes no sense to me. Without help, they say, we risk losing ground on the progress we've worked so hard to achieve for our students. Really? So, okay, forgive me, but I would like you guys to understand how to, I think it's like looking behind the words to figure out what the meaning is. So apparently they've made a lot of progress for their students. What would that be? What does that mean, making progress for their students? Their students have learned some stuff? Because that's their job, right? Is to teach the students. So they've made all this progress for the students. And without the funding, they're going to lose ground. Does that mean the students will become more stupid because they don't have money to fund jobs that aren't being cut? Everything's going on business as usual, but they're going to lose ground. Do you see how this makes zero sense? We need your voice. They're asking every parent, guardian, and staff member to stand with us and advocate for our students, because they need the money. They don't pay the students. To clarify, schools don't actually pay students. They get paid per the number of students that they serve. But they are asking people to contact local state representatives and senators, reach out to federal officials, encourage them to work with the DOE, which is funny, to release the funding, et cetera, et cetera. So my friend wrote back that she didn't think that it was appropriate for the federal government under the US Constitution to provide education for the state. It is not the federal government's obligation. It is only the state's obligation. So basically get off your high horse and quit your moaning, which I'm sure they didn't bother to read. But thank you very much for writing that letter. And that's really what I had to talk about. Although I do want to bring you guys up to date, unless my dogs start barking. Oh, they must see a squirrel. Hey, sorry about that. They don't actually listen to me. It just seems like they are right now. Okay, so I have to bring you guys up to date. I was in DC last week. It was an amazing trip. Sorry, I'm getting a comment here. This letter sounds like an excuse to cover some shady dealings, doesn't it? Does it? Well, thank you for pointing that out. You're not too late. You understood the gist in like 3 sentences or whatever. They're covering up for something. There is grift in our schools. I urge you to go and look at the article that I wrote called "The Grift in Our Schools." It's pretty straightforward. They are stealing billions of dollars from the United States public while they are corrupting the youth. It's a double whammy. They get paid lots of money and the kids get, basically tortured. By the way, if you're a teacher out there, if you're specifically a Christian teacher and you're really just working on behalf of the kids, I get it. God bless you. I wish you would get out and help students that aren't in school, because you'll be happier and they will be happier also. And you can provide a service for parents who understand that there's terrible things afoot in the schools. But anyway, last week I was we had our press conference on the stairs of the Capitol building. It's lovely. There's the Capitol in the background with the dome and stuff. That was kind of cool. And we had about I guess eight or 10 people speak. I can't remember the total number. Um, and we spoke out on behalf of Parents Demanding Justice Alliance. And so these are parents who were unjustly targeted by their local school boards for speaking out. Now, the reason that this is important for you is this targeting is still ongoing. It's still going on. One of the gals who spoke at the Capitol went home to discover that they targeted her some more and are going after her some more because they were upset that she spoke. So yes, it's still happening. The chilling effect that it is having on the parents who just want to speak up on behalf of their kids is is true, and it's outrageous. And it is literally the worst thing we could do for the education of our students. It's the worst thing we could do because the number one predictor of academic performance is parental involvement. And that's why I advocate to maximize that through home education. All you have to be is an interested parent, and your child will soar in his learning, in his education. You just have to be interested. But if he is in school, you still have to be interested. And so what they're doing is they're setting up obstacles for the parents to become involved. And because they set up those obstacles for the parents to become involved, that's actually an obstacle for the child to be learning. It is also an intimidation of all the other parents. So here we have Wonder Gina 75 still happening here in Ohio. I don't doubt it. More I speak out, the more I am targeted. Please go to realfreedomtalk.com and submit your story. We have a form to fill. We are collecting the stories of these parents. We are pushing for an executive order by the president himself, the person I like in chief, to an executive order acknowledging, and now we have the smoking gun because they just discovered, they've just released the documents, the emails between Merrick Garland and some of his lawyers at the DOJ who were telling be this way, we don't have any evidence of the violence that you're claiming. And what you're doing is actually trampling their First Amendment rights. Like, this is infringement at the highest degree. Like, don't be doing this. And he was like, meh, you know what? We're going to do it anyway because we really want them to sit down and shut up, those stupid parents. So please do reach out. If you are an aggrieved parent, please reach out. We would like to represent you. The more parents, obviously, we get, the better our case, the better our chances. I'm actually pushing, I'll just be honest. I really hope that we can get the president to have a ceremony. And by the way, just so we're clear, this is not even partisan. It's not partisan. We actually represent conservatives and liberals and independents, like all because we don't necessarily just all agree on the one thing, and that there's only that one thing. And so there were people who were not at all conservative who disagreed with certain books or disagreed with whatever. Just the act of disagreement was seen as violence, basically, by this administration. And they sicked the FBI, but they also did local law enforcement. And this is, I'll break it down a little bit more for you. Part of the problem is the local law enforcement that got involved, even if they didn't want to, and in some cases they admitted to the person they were arresting that they didn't understand why they just had to do it because they were just following orders. First of all, shame on you. You know that what you did was wrong, and it's very bad. The people who were actually got arrested for speaking at a school board meeting, are you kidding me? Now they have an arrest on their record. Now they can't go get a new job. And they, the school boards went to the employers and said, oh, you shouldn't have this person working for you. And people are so easily intimidated these days. So you're seeing the whole picture. So these parents are struggling. And I know All of them, I would say. Many of them quite personally. I know their stories. And this is not right. Now, to be clear, because people ask me, well, what's your interest? You didn't go to, I did. I actually spoke at a school board meeting years ago. That was when Common Core was in. My son spoke. He very brightly said, he was like 16 at the time, and he said, hey, if I'm not allowed to read this book to you guys, it shouldn't be in a classroom. And the reason that he couldn't read the book in the school board meeting was because it was pornographic, depicted a rape scene. Like, come on! And they're giving this to 16-year-olds. Not that I gave it to him; I didn't. He just we talked about it because you do have to talk about things with your kids. All of our children are at stake, political beliefs notwithstanding. That is true, and not only that, but I want the best for the kids. The best for the kids is for parents to be engaged. The only way to Okay, to be perfectly honest, I don't I don't envision that we can save our schools because the whole school paradigm is so perverted. So if at all possible, don't send your child to that institution. However, we still have the institution. And the only way to make it any better, the easiest, let me say, the easiest number one way to improve the institutions that are giving us a result of 40th among 40 nations, the best and easiest way is to get parents back involved in the schools. I'm actually pushing for parent only school boards. I don't see why somebody who's just a member of the community is serving on a school board if they don't have a child in the school there. I don't see it. So Joe Messina says he told the president, I told the president, the president of the board, if she tried to arrest the person speaking, she would have to arrest me because that stopped air dead in its tracks. Probably stopped her dead in its tracks. Joe, I haven't heard from you in a long time. I hope you're well. Yeah, well, that's great. Thank you for doing that. I wish other people would understand that everybody has the right to free speech. And just because you sit on a school board and you think you're this little tyrant in a cheap suit, you don't get to say who gets to talk and who doesn't get to talk. And we need to go back to that. We need to go back to the basics. But more than that, we have to bring parents in. We have to encourage parent. I say make parenting great again. I say Donald Trump is parent in chief. He loves his family. It's obvious he thinks family is important. We need parents. We need more parents at the school board meetings. I'm seeing Joe say, yes, we need you parents to show up at the school board meetings. Because look, the parents that I represent right now, they're extraordinary. And I get it. It takes chutzpah to go and speak at a school board meeting. It takes chutzpah to stand in the breach for your kid. We have one parent who went to a meeting at the school because his little boy really didn't want to wear a mask, took the mask off his face and threw it in the trash in the nurse's office. They made him fish his mask out of the trash and put it back on his face. That's abuse. Those people should be sued. That's abuse. And by the way, if they ever do anything like that to your child, please just take your child out first and figure it out later. Just figure it out later. But don't subject your child to that knowingly. As a single mom, I worked hard to start a home-based business so I could homeschool my daughter. Grateful God put this on my heart, praying it all worlds out. Yeah, thank you for that. There are many ways of getting it done, but I will tell you, the education of a child does not take more than an hour or two of your time every day. So even if you work full time, you're perfectly capable. And you know how I know that? Because I think that God is pretty smart. He gave kids and he factored in your stupidity. Sorry, I just had to say that. Sam to Sam. My wife and I got our kids out and homeschooled them years ago and never looked back. But yes, changing the system would have been better in a lot of ways. Okay. I think that part of the challenge that we have is we think of school as education because we've been brainwashed to think that school is education. It's not. It's really not. And when you start to open up and you start educating a child and you realize, oh my gosh, this has so little to do with school, and my child is smarter than I could have ever imagined, then you start to realize how much they got their claws into you, I guess is the best way to put it. How yeah, how much they've indoctrinated you, me. I was so indoctrinated. I mean, first of all, when I first started, I thought I just don't even know how to do this. But the alternative, I did realize the alternative, putting my kids in that environment every day was going to be a failure. The social stuff would be disastrous. And I realized that. And I said to my husband, I think I could fail at homeschooling him and he'll still be better off. So at least I had that. So I kind of felt like, okay. And by the way, this is in my book, They're Your Kids, which I'm getting more and more people commenting to me that it's like the book to transition somebody into a homeschooler. Ooh, I used that word. I shouldn't have used that word transition, but you know what I mean. So I don't know if with my other two kids I would have had the same visceral, like I could just fail at educating him, but he'll still be better off. And then of course, what I realized when I finally figured it all out, I would say, because at this point I've pretty much figured it all out, maybe not everything, but most of it. What I finally realized is education happens organically. We get in the way of education. School gets in the way of education. School inhibits education. It inhibits learning. It is the opposite of education. And so when you realize that, you go, oh my gosh. So if I do nothing at all but give my kid like really good books and show them the world, they'll be fine. Yeah, pretty much. Like teach your kids to be adults, give them good books so that they learn stuff about the world, good books. It's literally, it's that simple. And that doesn't take more than an hour or two a day. I mean, unless you stay up late nights researching the books and you want to read all the books that you give your kid, which is not a bad idea either. So I've got agreement online, and I guess we will leave it there. I'm just checking up all the comments. Okay, yeah, that's it. Well, this has been really good. I just love the fact that the school is complaining about not getting money that it didn't deserve. To reiterate, I'm going to go find that one little piece in this letter. State funding for public schools was reduced by more than $47 million after state leaders reported thousands of students inappropriately counted in both the voucher and the public school programs. So they accidentally had a clerical error, and the school's funding was cut by the number of students that aren't going to school, the money that they didn't deserve. And they got their panties in a wad about that. You can't make this stuff up, folks. All right, that's it for me. Thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, please subscribe, like, and share. I'm trying to grow my channel, and I need your help. So like, subscribe, and share wherever you've watched this or wherever you intend to watch it in the future. And thank you. Don't forget to tune back in. We'll keep you posted on all the stuff. If you want any other information about the books or about anything that I'm up to, just go to samsorbo.com. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter. And I think I've covered everything. Remember, speak truth and speak it boldly. and go with God. We'll see you later. Bye.